Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition is EVO the Search for Eden, brought to us by Enix. EVO has to be one of the most unique games available for the Super Nintendo. It's a game that takes place over 5 time periods. You start off as a small creature and must evolve over time by destroying other enemies and eating different objects in order to improve yourself, allowing you to take on stronger and bigger and more powerful enemies. So here we go with EVO the Search for Eden for the Super Nintendo. After starting up the game, we get the Enix Present screen before jumping into the opening story. After the opening story, we get our epic title screen as you see the EVO logo coming in from the bottom. Pressing start here, you'll then jump into a little bit of dialogue with Gaia, and then go into the first level. Chapter 1 is the world before land, 500 to 450 million BC. Now in EVO we're playing as a servant of Gaia. We start off as a very small fish in a very large ocean, and we must grow and evolve, taking on the enemies as we go in order to complete the time period. When we start off, you can see in the upper left corner our current health. And to the right of that are EVO points, which we use to evolve our character, and what's really cool about the game is you can evolve at any time as long as you have the points. You don't have to wait for certain cutscenes or certain criteria. You can press pretty much the button at any point and evolve your character, adding arms, legs, and other various things. After meeting with the first enemy here, this jellyfish, and just have a basic conversation, you can then decide just to leave him or actually attack him. Defeating enemies will net you item drops, like food. Eating this food will give you EVO points, as well as usually healing you a little bit. This is one of those games where it can get frustrating pretty quickly because enemies can do a ton of damage to you very fast. That's why being sneaky and figuring out how each of the enemies' patterns is going to be essential for figuring out what you should attack and what you should run from. The evolution system in EVO is quite extensive, so I will do my best to explain it along the way, but even I am not perfect when it comes to it. There are a couple of different ways you can evolve your character over the course of the game. I will be going with what eventually leads us to becoming a human. Near the beginning of the game, it's a good idea to just kind of hang around like the opening area, like right here, and take out a few of the jellyfish in order to build up some of your experience. Now, you can go many different routes. Like I said, there's a lot to evolve here, and I'll kind of go over a very basic format for how this works. You can upgrade your jaws, your horn, your body, dorsal fin, tail, back of the head, and neck. You can only evolve certain parts of this during certain time periods, so depending upon what chapter you're in will also depend on what you can evolve at that point. Now, some things you can instantly go from like jaw level 1 all the way to jaw level 3 on some cases, and other things you may have to go to a certain part of your body and then it'll unlock other parts based on what you evolved into previously. Now, as far as what these things end up doing for you, the two most important to me usually are jaws and body, because the jaws will increase your attack power, as well as the body will increase your health and your defense. Now, things like the horn will usually focus more on like the ram damage. If you double tap left or right, you can run or dash into enemies and hit them with that. Your dorsal fin, tail, back of the head, those types of things really affect usually jump height, depending upon if your character can jump at that point. Of course, we can't do that quite yet. But also increase agility and speed, which is very useful for getting away from enemies. Your neck will usually involve you being able to grow your neck longer so that you can end up hitting enemies higher above you or lower beneath you. Now, this doesn't mean that every tail that you get only increases your agility. Sometimes, for example, the first thing that we're actually going to be purchasing is a better tail that not only increases our agility, which allows us to move faster, but it's also going to increase our health slightly. When it comes to your health, always keep an eye on it, of course, because you can die very quickly in this game. If you see that your health is low and you know your death is immediate, you can actually evolve any part of your body, even maybe not so useful of a part, and regain health that way. There are some great guides online that will tell you every single evolution object and exactly what it's going to do for you. Like, for example, if a tail not only will give you agility, but also will increase your health, or things like that. Now, in the game, there's a little bit of grinding I will do from time to time. For example, I'm grinding here, but I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to where we evolve for the first time, grabbing our second tail for the 300 evolution points. This will increase our agility and a little bit of our health, and then we're going to go back to grinding a bit. After you are done with grinding for a little while, head over to the right side and eat the yellow orb, and you will get a little bit of a dialogue sequence. Basically, this dialogue is going to tell you exactly what I was just talking about with how the evolution system kind of works in the game. A cool feature is you can actually back out of levels. You don't have to always go back to the exit in order to get back to the world map. As long as you've completed a certain goal, sometimes in an area, you can just go back to the world map and the next area is opened up. For example, we now have the Cave of Temptation opened up. Start off by heading over to the right and inside of the cave. Once inside the cave, head over to the right, take out a couple of the enemies here. When you hit these guys, they end up splitting apart into two little enemies, and you can end up defeating both of the enemies in order to grab some food. Some great experience can be grabbed while destroying these guys. Head over to the right side, and you will come across a red crystal. Now, these red crystals are kind of a temporary evolution. You will evolve into an interesting creature for unfortunately only a period of time, but these are pretty cool. We're then going to go back to the world map, head back down and now to the right, and go up in here for the next level. On this next area, well, it's kind of a waiting game. These creatures will run away and they will keep spawning, and you can catch up to them eventually and start defeating them, either by double tapping in order to rush at them, or you can just keep moving to the right. Eventually they're going to have to turn around because there's a wall of bubbles in your way. If you try to go back over to the left side, that wall of bubbles is also there. We pretty much just have to hang out and move around for a while, and eventually the floor will kind of open up and the bubbles will disappear, allowing us to go to the next area. After making it past the wall of bubbles, head over to the right and down in order to enter into the next level. Now, I'm not even going to try to say some of the names of the levels, but basically this is kind of our first real stage here. We have more of a cave-like setting that's more maze-like than the other caves that we've traveled in thus far. It also has a pretty tough enemy that we have to deal with right away. If you haven't evolved your jaws to the next kind of level here, you may have some trouble being able to net like 1 damage to these enemies. If you're able to defeat them though, you will end up getting 50 evolution points. So after killing only a couple of these guys, you should be able to evolve your jaws. I'm not going to fight all of them because it's best just to kind of avoid some of them if possible. Hitting them, then running away into a diagonal direction is the best, because you'll be able to usually get away from them with our increased agility from our tail, and they will end up then going back to the right. On the far right side, grab the big orb here, the blue crystal. This will allow us to evolve our jaws to the same jaws that they have, and this way we're definitely now going to be on even terms and can deal with these guys a lot easier. While this is the most complicated of the stages thus far, the cave really isn't that much of a maze. There's going to be a lot tougher mazes to deal with farther into the game. Of course, since we were able to evolve our jaws, you might as well go ahead and take out all the enemies along the way. Now, honestly, with the increased jaw power, we can pretty much take on the rest of the enemies for Chapter 1. One thing that's very annoying about the game that I've never been a huge fan of is you lose evolution points between the different chapters. So once we go to Chapter 2, all the evolution points that we currently have will no longer be with us. So you might as well use them while you have them, or they're just going to go to waste. When you make it to this area, the whole screen will start to shake and the volcanoes will start erupting in the background. Either dash on through to easily avoid, or usually I like to hang out near the bottom of the screen while traveling through to try to avoid as much of the firepower from the volcano. Now right afterwards there's an enemy that we can eat and refill some of that health we lost during the volcano segment. This next segment is a pretty straightforward area. We just have these fish that we have to deal with, which can be annoying because if they have a bunch of them on screen at once, as you see, they can kind of gang up on you. After defeating the initial group, start heading over to the right. You can double dash, of course, over to the right if you want to. There's some urchins hanging around the top portion of the screen. We're going to just ignore them and keep heading right. At the end of the area, there's another little cave, and we can go ahead and enter inside. Now it's time for the final area of the first chapter of the game, which also includes our first boss battle of the game, the Cave of Origin. Head to the lower right, you're going to eat a couple of jellyfish that are in your way, which is a good thing actually, because this will get you some of your health back. This is a pretty straightforward cave. There's no really even branching paths for you to have to deal with like we did in the previous cave that we were traveling through. Just heading along the right side, taking out the enemies. Eventually the path will split and allow you to go upwards instead of just going to the right. Head on up. There's going to be a couple of more enemies along this path. And eventually we can now go to the right. Once you're into the next segment though, that's when things get a lot more challenging. Once you're in this area, you're going to see these shark enemies. Just avoid them. Start heading up to the top portion of the screen. Now I'm going to evolve here and get a better dorsal fin. This will allow me to move a bit quicker around these sharks. Of course, you can also dash, but when you're heading up and having to do a little bit more of avoiding these enemies, it's best to just increase the tail's agility. Head up to the surface here and you'll be able to avoid most of the sharks. They're going to start chasing you, but with the increased speed from our tail, they shouldn't be able to catch up with us. After a few enemies get on screen, unfortunately, the game does suffer a bit of slowdown, especially if you have any more than 3 enemies on screen at once. Eventually, though, you'll make it to that far right side, which will have another cave, and we can enter it for the actual first boss fight. When the fight begins, you're going to head up or down immediately, avoiding him as he charges right forward. Then you're going to start biting him in the back. If you're able to do this and get him to that left wall, you'll be able to attack him multiple times, slowly inching him to the left wall. Once you've done so, run away from him as he'll charge you, and then after he turns around, repeat the process. It won't take too many bites with our improved jaws, and you can go around and collect all the extra health and evolution points if you want to from the boss. Once you've done so, though, head up just a little bit and you'll have another cutscene. Once that dialogue is done, we're going to head up to the right now. We're going to be in a very shallow set of water. Head over to the far right side, and we're going to get another cutscene where we get to evolve and move on to the next chapter of the game. Chapter number 2 is Early Creatures of Land, 300 to 230 million BC. Now that we've evolved and grown a pair of legs, we're now going to be traveling on land. One thing cool in the game is at any point if you jump back in the water, you're going to de-evolve. You're going to lose your legs and actually get your fins back. So it's kind of a weird thing that is able to happen with that, but it also adds a cool dynamic. Just because you've now grown the ability to walk on land doesn't mean you can't go back into the water. You can see that the map we're using has vastly changed, and we're going to start off by leaving the area that we were at and head over to the left. This is also the first time in the game where you'll have multiple branching paths to travel to. You can either choose to go up or to the left, and we're going to start off by going to the left here where we jump into the water and de-evolve, growing ourselves some fins again. This area is a pretty straightforward area. You can defeat the enemies down below in order to earn a little bit of evolution points early on, or just run over to the right side, evolve back to your full-legged form, and then head off to the next stage. Not a whole lot also to say about the next area. Pretty much, once again here, we're just going to be heading over to the right side. We can defeat these enemies if we want. Some of them are going to run away from us. Some will actually attack us. But we can get ourselves a few evolution points. Now this area is a bit tougher. The enemies here are kind of stronger versions than the ones we were dealing with in the last area. These are going to be a lot more harder to destroy. They're going to give us a little bit more evolution points as well. But these guys like to jump behind you, try to jump on you, as well as straight up attack you. So be very careful of these guys. Now, one of the big reasons why we've even traveled along this whole left side is to eventually lead us to a boss fight. Next up is the Land of Amphibians. You'll start off with a little bit of dialogue before gaining control of your character. The enemies here start off as pretty much the same ones that we were just dealing with in that last area. You're going to want to probably evolve before going all the way to the right. There's also a new enemy which will charge at you. The first thing I'm going to upgrade though is my jaws, getting them a little bit stronger. Now that we're doing 3 damage to the enemies here, we can destroy them in just a single bite, and because of this we can earn a lot of evolution points quickly. To the far right though is our next boss fight. And this boss is very difficult if you haven't like evolved the body or prepared for the fight. While this boss's fight, there is a big trick to it. Start off by getting away from his dodge. Then you're going to want to get above him so that when he jumps up now, you're going to be able to bite. So you have to keep going back and forth, left and right like this, just alternating left and right, and biting when he jumps upwards. If you time it correctly, you can keep biting him over and over and quickly deplete his health. If you miss your timing on this, he'll end up getting above you, and you're going to want to quickly retreat downwards and try to get him back stuck in the same way we had him stuck at the beginning of the fight. Once he's defeated, you can grab a whole bunch of evolution points, and we're going to upgrade our tail here. Now that we've done so, head all the way over to the far right to complete the area. You'll notice that there's nowhere else to travel on this left side, but there is a new area opened up to the far right. We're not going to be going there yet, though. We're going to instead head north from where we started and go to this area. This empty land, well, is an empty land. There's just pretty much a cutscene, and you'll be able to get through it quickly. I don't know if there's really a point other than that cutscene, but I want to at least complete as many areas of the game as I could. Now we're going to head over to the far right to the next actual stage. The enemies introduced here are these kind of cockroach-like enemies, the ancestors of the cockroach to be more exact. They will run at you very quickly, and if you're able to bite them multiple times in a row, you'll be able to defeat them, or else they'll probably start flying away and be able to outrun you while they fly. There's not much else here, just running through, eating a lot of these guys, so it will net you a pretty good amount of evolution points. Next up is the domain of the giant bee, and you're gonna immediately find out why it is called that, as giant bees start swarming in and attacking the other creatures that are here. I find it best not to even really worry about the bees and just run past them doing some running jumps so that you're able to get to the opposite side quickly. After the land of giant bees, well, is the land of insects, and a swarm of those bees carrying the enemies from the last part are coming from the left side as soon as you start this area. I just find that image to be hilarious as you just run quickly by them, just dash all the way to the opposite side and go right into the next area. At the beginning of the Cave of King Bee, before we get to the boss fight here, we have a cutscene with this guy here who will pretty much say, "Eat me so you can get some extra strength." I just find the whole concept of this guy passing away in front of us and then us eating him for his power before going into this next boss fight. Now inside here is the king bee, but in order to get the king bee to kind of spawn, first off we're going to have to deal with these little larvas that appear. Thankfully, defeating the larvas will actually get us some evolution points that could be useful to us. You'll have to either eat the eggs or wait for the eggs to hatch and then eat up the larva that starts crawling away from you. These guys are a bit annoying because they're low to the ground and they can kind of jump away from you. There's a few ledges in this part that can be difficult to actually attack the enemies on. After you defeat enough of them though, the king bee will be summoned. This fight is rather difficult. We have evolution points for a reason in case we get low on health and we'll need them. Do jump attacks in order to hit him out of the air, he'll fall down and you'll be able to immediately bite him again. If you time it right, you can actually bite him multiple times while he's on the ground, though it can be difficult to get the exact timing on this, and he does move quickly between your bites, so unless your jaw is really fast, it can be difficult to do this and kind of soft lock him into multiple attacks. As soon as he flies into the air though, immediately do another jump attack to grab a hold of him and bring him back down to the ground before he is able to fire out his projectiles and do significant damage to you. He has a good amount of health, and since we haven't really spent too much time upgrading our jaws or anything, because we really don't need to, this fight will take a bit of time. Once he is defeated though, of course pick up all the wonderful food that he ends up dropping. We're going to upgrade now to the Fierce Jaws, using all the points that we have gathered up. With the Fierce Jaws, a much more powerful attack, the most powerful that we can actually have in the second chapter, head now past all the eggs and to the right where the King Bee had emerged from. After the dialogue and heading to the right, you're now going to be in the North Continent of the second chapter. Start off in the Desert of the Sand Eater. These things are weird that pop out and kind of spew at you. I honestly recommend just running past and doing jumps in between them when they do pop up, and just get to the opposite side of the screen. Along the way, there will be a green crystal for you to pick up along the way, but once you grab that, just keep doing the whole thing of running and jumping in between and avoiding the spewing things that are popping out of the ground. After the dialogue with the Eddasaurus, you can then start continuing over to the right, attacking them if you wish. There is a few enemies here, but we do have enough evolution points, and as long as you've upgraded your jaw now, you should be pretty good in order to complete Chapter 2. The next area is the Desert of the Musuchop. This thing will immediately appear from the ground and try to jump at you. As soon as he pops up, you'll have to be very quick in order to bite down on him. And it only takes a single bite with the most powerful jaws that we have, but you have to be careful and be prepared for them to pop out at you. Next up is the battle with the Queen Bee herself. Of course, she's quite upset after what happened with the King Bee. After the bit of dialogue, you can actually eat this bug right away in order to get a little bit of extra health and points before the fight with the Queen Bee begins. Now, as far as the fight with the Queen Bee goes, it's very similar to the King Bee. She is, of course, a lot more powerful, though we have now upgraded our jaws, so we have a much more easier time being able to deal damage. Now, if she flies up in the air and starts launching projectiles, run, and I mean run quickly to the opposite side of the screen away from her to try to avoid those projectiles. However, if you're very quick and the jaws that we have are pretty quick, we can keep her pretty much low to the ground, dealing 10 points of damage with every bite. After delivering enough bites, though, she will be defeated, and we're going to move on to Chapter 3. Chapter number 3 is the Age of the Dinosaurs, 200 to 65 million BC. Like we've unfortunately had happen to us in the past couple of chapters, we lose all our evolution points. We kind of start off at a base model for the age of the dinosaurs. This is where things really kind of pick up with the game. Start off by going over to the right a little bit, and you're going to have to jump up, and you can grab a hold of this yellow crystal at the top. After grabbing the crystal, head over to the right to go off screen, and now you'll come to the world map, which you can see is changed up even more so than from the previous chapter. Start off, we're going to go to the bottom path, and you're going to meet the first dinosaurs here, who will run away from you, but if you end up attacking them, they will attack back. They're going to take a couple of hits in order to defeat them. You may want to spend some time on this portion and defeat these guys a little bit, gaining enough points in order to evolve your jaw to the next level, or just kind of run through, defeat a few, and make your way to the end. At the beginning of the next area, jump up and immediately grab the crystal that's floating in the air, and watch out for these dinosaurs. They run into one another, headbutting each other, and they bounce off. When they do that, you can actually get hurt by them as they bounce back, or of course if they charge directly into you. Though you can use this once they have bounced off one another to give them a couple of bites, defeat them, and pick up their evolution points. This is another pretty good area early on in chapter number 3 to gain some points in order to evolve a little bit before heading off to the far right. Now, before heading all the way over to the right, we're now going to backtrack and actually go north here from the beginning of Chapter 3 and go to the Marsh of the Prime Frogs. After a little bit of dialogue, the frog will start running away, and of course you can attack him in order to net yourself a little bit of points. Do the same with the other frogs here. Now, they are a bit annoying because they will try to hit you with their tongue, and it hits a very large distance, of course. So they're going to be able to hit you multiple times sometimes before you're able to get close enough to hit them. Do the dashing jumps in order to try to avoid too many hits from their tongues. The next little area, the Marsh of the Amphibians, is actually pretty much what happened to the amphibians that we were dealing with in the last chapter, pretty much what's become of them as the time has evolved. Now, these guys don't want to mess around. They're going to attack you. They're quite angry, as we've dealt with them before, of course. So they're going to be able to drain your health a bit. Defeat the ones you need to in order to grab some evolution points as you make your way through. On the next area, you're going to find out about a missing child. Now, you're not going to get attacked, and do not attack the dinosaur here. Just avoid it and head over to the far right to get past the area. You're not going to be able to tangle with this dinosaur right now. Now that we've completed all the areas on the north part of the continent, we're now going to head to the southern continent, to the domain of the Brontosaurus. Now these guys seem all friendly enough, and thankfully though we've gotten enough of our points in order to improve our tail here. And I recommend improving the tail because we'll be able to jump higher and be able to get past these guys. Now they can still hurt you, and you can kind of make a jumping attack to them while you're going through. But honestly, just avoid them for right now and just go to the far right. Now for the next area, these guys are a little bit different. We're going to do some attacks to them in order to take them out. It takes several bites and they do a lot of damage to you. But as long as you go in with pretty much full health, you will be able to defeat them. And when you do defeat one, they will drop a 50 evolution point piece of meat. Attacking them from behind will allow you usually to get multiple hits on them without them doing as much damage to you. If you do it just right, you'll be able to hit them without them ever being able to hit you, though it can be a bit difficult in order to avoid their attacks. Basically, you just don't want to get too close to them while you're still trying to grab them. Improving the length of your neck can kind of help you with this spot here, but it's not worth spending the points on. Since these dinosaurs do give you so much experience for defeating them, this is another really good area to build up some of those EVO points. One cool thing is if you stay on screens for long enough, the day to night cycle will take place. It will become night, as you can see here. And now that we've earned enough points, I'm going to upgrade my jaw, so this will help me out. Now at night, the dinosaurs here will actually go to sleep, and this will give you a big advantage to be able to run up to them and deal a bunch of damage really quickly to them. The domain of the Stegosaurus, not the Stegosaurus according to the game, but these guys are not only quite large, they're just as powerful, if not more so, than the ones we were dealing with in the last screen. Watch out for their tail at all costs while battling them. Thankfully, the tail swipes they do is quite slow, so you should be able to back away from them while still moving in close in order to deliver those bites. Once again, this is another good area to build up EVO points if you want to. Now that I built up quite enough points, I'm going to go ahead and improve my jaw up to the next level to increase my attack. When we make it to the domain of the prime frogs, go over just a little bit and you see two frogs attacking viciously a small dinosaur child. After the dialogue, you can chase down the frogs, maybe being able to take out one, but then we're going to be going to the next area where it's time for our next boss battle. The next area of the domain of Prime Frog has us battling the Mama Frog, who is not very happy that we attacked her children a second ago that was torturing that poor dinosaur. Now, as for this fight, we're going to run forward and immediately start attacking the mother frog multiple times as quick as we can, just mashing the attack button and biting into her. Now, the little frogs that she's able to get out may jump around, including being able to jump on your back, but if you're continually pressing that attack button, you can just keep knocking the mother back and easily defeat her. Once she's defeated, she shoots out a ton of baby frogs, and then you can eat the meat from them to gain a lot of evolution points. When we make it to the domain of Tritops, we're going to be attacked by the Triceratops right away as they're going to charge up before they run into you. Just start immediately attacking by biting into them before they're able to do a charge move to you. Our next area, though, we make it to the shore of an ocean. Jumping into the water like we did earlier on in the game will transform us into one of those amphibian-looking creatures, allowing us to swim around under the water. There's a few dinosaurs that will float up to the top, but we're going to pretty much ignore them, just working our way over to the left side. If one of the Plusosaurus is getting kind of your way, you can take them out for a nice 100 points of evolution, but you don't really have to attack them. At the end of the area, pop out of the water, transform back into your normal legged self, and head off to the next place. Now we're at Mount Brave. Now, for Mount Brave, what we're going to do is run over to the right side and start climbing up Mount Brave. You're going to have to maybe attack this pterodactyl-like dinosaur that's going to try to attack you while you're climbing up. They get in the way, so jump and do your biting attack while jumping to keep them down. If you're able to get him down low enough, you can hit him multiple times before he's able to rise up to the top. Slowly but surely keep jumping on your way while trying to deal with these dinosaurs. When you reach the top portion of the mountain here, we're going to change and get ourselves a new dorsal fin, which will allow us to jump higher. You have to have a certain amount of jump in order to make it up to the next portion of the mountain, which is a little bit annoying, but thankfully you can buy pretty much the cheapest of the dorsal fins in order to do this. Once you make it, though, to the very top, you're going to want to listen to the voices and actually run over to the left side and jump off the side. This will give you a secret evolution, allowing you to grow a pair of wings. Once you become a winged creature, you want to fly down and go off to the left, and you'll go to a new area. This new area will take you to this mountain-like area to the south. This is the Mountain of Hidden Mammals, where basically you can find out that slowly the mammals are starting to exist and be around, but for the most part we're going to pretty much ignore the mammals, just flying over and away from them, not really paying too much attention to them along the way. Drop down the right side of the mountain. By doing so, you'll go back to the map and wait for a cloud to kind of hover overhead. If you wait at the right spot while moving along this map, you can actually get up to the cloud. You may have to move a little bit on the map itself, but if you're able to get the cloud to go over your head, you should be able to fly up to it, since we have the winged ability. This takes you to a secret area of the game that you can only explore if you do this. You'll start off in a very stormy cloud area. Just start by flying all the way up. You're going to be flying up several levels here amongst all the clouds. When you make it here, head over to the right side all the way as far as you can go. It takes you quite a while, but eventually you're going to come to the end and find a red crystal. Eat the red crystal and you're going to be transformed into the dragon form. Now unfortunately you can only stay as the dragon for a period of time, but this form is really cool. Once you have the dragon form, you're going to want to drop down this opening here, dropping down a couple of levels before heading over to the right side. Head right a little bit and then drop down again before heading back to the right some more. Once you make it over here, start flying upwards. You'll now be technically to the right of where we found the crystal a few moments ago. Now, you have to fly just a bit left and continue your path north. Once you make it out of the clouds, you'll be in the River of Asteroid. This is one of the coolest areas of the game, and it's completely secret and an extra area altogether. We're going to start off by flying all the way over to the far left side of the sky, and there's a large portion of area to cover here, so just keep on flying to the left. Unfortunately, the crystal that we ate for the dragon ability won't last forever, so we're not even going to really get a chance to use it in battle or anything. As we fly all the way to the left while traveling through this area, it will eventually run out. Now, one thing cool about EVO is, unfortunately, there was no sequel, but it actually wasn't the first game in the series. There was a prequel, and this is technically the spiritual successor to the game. While Enix brought the game over to North America, it was actually made by Almanac Corporation in Japan, and is actually kind of the spiritual successor or follow-up to another game with a very similar title in its Japanese version. Basically, in Japan, EVO is known as 4.6 billion year story to distant Eden, it's called, and the original version was 4.6 billion story, the theory of evolution. That game was made for the NEC PC 9801. Now, inside this room here at the far end, you're going to see an alien talking to a creature and actually zapping him with a laser, and then we have to fight him. Once you defeat him, or even if you don't defeat him, you can grab the crystal here, which will grant you 9,999 evolution points. Unfortunately, we can't take the points with us to chapter number 4, so we might as well use them to really improve our character. Now, once you leave that asteroid, head all the way to the right, pretty good amount of distance, eventually you will come to another asteroid. Once you're inside this asteroid, you will get a little bit more dialogue, but once that is passed, go up. You can deal with these guys if you want to. They will give you a little bit of evolution points if you're actually able to take them out. But your goal here is to fly over to the right and find another red crystal. Now, this will transform you into the very cool gargoyle-like form. Now, unfortunately, just like with the dragon form, you can only keep it for a short period of time. You're not really going to be able to use it a whole lot in battle against creatures. However, once you leave that asteroid, you fly over to the right some more. Now, inside here, you're going to come to some more dialogue with another one of these same creatures that we've been dealing with in here, but you're also going to find a green crystal. You can go ahead and eat that, and then drop on down. Once back out into the main open area with the asteroid belt and all that, you can head all the way straight down. Just drop down. After doing so, you'll be back on the main island of the map. And now we're going to head over to the far right side in order to continue the story. Here we're going to find the Pronosaurus, or what it actually is an Ankylosaurus, which happens to be one of my favorite dinosaurs. After going through a bit of dialogue with them, we're actually just going to avoid them. We don't need any more points. We really can just head to the boss of chapter number 3, so we're going to start flying over them. Unfortunately, the gargoyle form will run out right about here, and we'll just continue on in our normal form. Now, these are another group of dinosaurs that we're going to kind of avoid. You can take out the first one if you want to grab some meat, but we're going to fly over most of them. fly up in the air just a bit so you can avoid them jumping up to grab you and continue over to the right. Now, they did mention the Tyrannosaurus, or basically Tyrannosaurus, that we're going to have to be dealing with soon. When you make it to the Tyrannosauruses, what you want to do is make sure that you say no when they ask you if you want to rule the world with them. If you say yes here, you are stuck here. You can go around and defeat them if you want to, you can fly around, but the game will not progress. You have to make sure that you say that no, you don't want to rule the world with them, and you'll of course be attacked once you do this. Now, this really isn't a boss fight against a particular boss, it's just the group of them in general, and they're pretty powerful, of course, so even with our evolution points that we have used, they can still deal some good damage. So the recommended thing, of course, is to attack as many of them as you can. Do not let them group on you at all. And if you get low on health, you of course can eat the meat that they drop, which gives you a lot of health, or you can evolve any part of your body. You still have some evolution points left over from that 9,999 crystal we got a little bit ago. You'll have to defeat a certain amount of them, but eventually the game will turn over to night while you're fighting them, of course, and this is a good sign that you're probably getting close to near the end of this big battle against these guys. After you defeat enough of them, though, you will be teleported out before seeing one of the more sad cutscenes in the game. It's now time for Chapter 4, the Ice Age, 65 to 36 million BC, and that cutscene where all the dinosaurs are being killed off by the asteroid is definitely one of the saddest moments of the game. Now, when we gain control on the world map again, you can now see that most of the continent that we're on is covered in ice, so that'll be a main theme of this chapter. Now, Chapter 4 does change up some of our potential evolutionary areas. This is where we're going to actually eventually start building towards becoming a human. Now, I will be honest, becoming a human actually in some ways isn't as beneficial as just remaining one of the creatures, like becoming a really kind of evolved super being. The human form, while very cool in some ways and one of the kind of like pinnacles of this game as far as the evolution goes, does present some problems. Now, inside this area is another pretty sad area. You'll actually find the spirits of some of the dinosaurs kind of still hanging out here. Now, while talking to this dinosaur here, you will be granted the ability to become a mammal, which is something that we're going to need to do. When we become a mammal, though, this changes things drastically in the game. We go from being the dinosaur-type creature that we've always been to now being, well, a mouse. This kind of weird cat-mouse-like creature is very, very weak in comparison to what we just were a few moments ago. Once we have changed, though, we're going to head back now to the world map and head to the next area. After a bit of dialogue here, we'll now get control of our character and have to start attacking the other rat-like creatures that are inside of this cave. And it'll take a while, it's going to be a very slow progress, but our goal here is to evolve a little bit, to have some more powerful abilities for when we're about to be traveling here. Once you have finally earned 200 evolution points by defeating these guys, we're going to upgrade our jaw. This will allow us to take out enemies, of course, a little bit better here, but this isn't the best plane for us to train right now. After getting a couple of more kills here just to get a bit of evolution points, we're now going to head out of this area. Once back to the map, head over now to the right side for the next area, the door to Mount Snow. Now, from the door to Mount Snow, we're going to head up north first on top of these icy platforms, head to the right, and this will unlock a new spot on the map. However, we're not going to go to that spot. Instead, go right back into the same place we just were. Now, once back in here, instead of going up the icy platforms up the mountain, head over to the right on the bottom portion and go inside of this cave. Now, inside this cave is several areas with some enemies here that we can battle with if we want to even get more evolution points and level up our character. You can see that we've come across the hiding place for all the Triceratops, and they're going to ask you to just leave them alone. They're struggling as is, obviously, but we're going to be a little bit of, well, mean here. And we're going to attack them because they net us some good evolution points by defeating them, as you'll be able to get quite a good amount of those points. So, fight around here for a few moments and gain some of those EVO points. When you first earn enough to upgrade your body to the rabbit-shaped body, go ahead and do that. Also, at this point, you're going to want to do the evolutions that I end up choosing if you want to go for that human form, but only if you want to go to that human form. The whole cat jaw and rabbit body are essential to becoming the human. There's another body that we're going to be taking a little bit later on, and we can evolve that in order to eventually get to human form. But you must have the rabbit body and cat jaw in order to do that. Now here, these guys are a little bit troublesome because they're going to be trying to shoot projectiles at you while you're trying to bite into them. After defeating a few of them and gaining some more evolution points, we're not going to evolve yet. We're now going to head over to the right side, and you're going to be on the opposite side of the icy cave that we were in. Now, when you make it back to the map, you're going to notice that we have one spot that we had locked earlier, and we have another spot on the left side. I'm going to focus on the left side here. I'm not going to be going back over to that right side. It ends up just kind of leading around, and you'll see how the map ends up working and why it doesn't really matter which side we end up choosing in the end. Now, at the very beginning of this area, be very careful. These guys will kind of gang up on you, but the good thing about them is if you're able to destroy them, you will get a good amount of points. But that's all that we're going to do there. We're just going to take those guys out and then go back out to the world map and head south to the lower continent. Next up, we come to the Land of Survival, and immediately as soon as you enter, they're like, oh, we've been discovered. I kind of surprised that it would take this long for anyone to discover that these dinosaurs are still alive. I mean, they're not necessarily the smallest of breeds, but either way, we're just not going to really do anything with them. We're just going to run over them, jump over them when we need to, and get on to the next spot. Unlike the last area, the Land of Survival Area 2 has some Tyrannosauruses ready to immediately, of course, attack us. And now, in the current state that we are, it's a little bit difficult to deal with them. So we're just going to avoid them, doing some running jumps, bouncing off their heads, which I just find completely comical, and make our way over to the far right. Now we're going to head across this little gap here and go to this island onto the lower right corner of the map. This is the domain of Bauriums, and you can see these kind of creatures hanging around. A little bit of dialogue at the beginning, but we can actually attack these guys. It takes several bites for us to defeat, but they give us a decent amount of evolution points for defeating them. Now next up, we're actually going to head south, and it's going to take us to the bottom part of the map and up to the upper right corner of the map, and actually take us to the North Pole where there's penguins hanging around. You can immediately attack the penguins if you want for some nice experience, but just the fact that they have some penguins here, they're very easy to deal with. I just find it cool that they're actually included in the game, as well as some other animals like the seal that's located right next to them. Other than the novelty of finding the penguin and the seals, there really isn't anything else for us to do here as we make it to the right side of the map. Now we're back onto the main ice continent, and we go into this place, the Domain of Mammoth. In order to get through the Domain of Mammoth, we're going to have to take on the 3 Mammoth brothers. Thankfully, you take them on one at a time, and they're very easy. We're going to run over and start attacking the one, attacking twice, while holding right to attack twice, then back up just a second or so in order to try to avoid some of the attacks from his trunk, and then continue doing the biting. And you're going to repeat this process for all 3 of the Mammoth brothers. As you can see, it's a very easy pattern to bite twice, run away just a second, and if you time it just right, you can avoid them even firing at you using their trunk power. Each one, I think, moves a little bit quicker than the last one, but either way, you can just easily get them stuck here and get some extra experience while doing so. Now, once you defeat the 3 Mammoth brothers, you're going to end up running into the Mammoth gal. She'll mention that she thought the Yeti had attacked, but nope, no Yeti here, just, well, a very small, weird-looking creature. Once we're done talking to the female mammoth, we're now going to head back to the left side of the ice continent. Unfortunately, though, to get there, we're going to have to take the long way around. So head back north, through across to the bottom right, then to the left and up, back to the main ice continent. For the exit of Mount Snow, head over to the left and enter inside of the cave. This is the area that we were a little bit earlier on. If you would like to, I recommend fighting some of these guys here so you can net yourself a little bit of extra experience. I grind for quite a bit here. As you can see, my EVO points are now over 5,000 from defeating these guys, but this is one of the best spots to do this in. Once you have leveled up, you can head back out of the area. Now, with that extra experience that we have gained, we're going to head back to the bottom left continent and head over to the far left side to this question mark place. Once here, make contact with the pillar in the middle for some dialogue. Here we're going to be taken to one of the most frustrating areas in the game. This is Fort Birdman. And we're going to immediately start off by leveling up our body. I mentioned earlier on that you're going to want to level up this body to this point, because this is what's going to eventually allow us in order to go into human form. So that's why we had to get all that extra experience just a few moments ago. As you can see, we're already slightly becoming more monkey-like. You'll notice these bird guys do give you a decent amount of experience, but nowhere near what we were gaining in that last area. Here I usually gain myself a little bit more experience. Now, you could have gotten this at that other area before coming here, or waited till you got here in order to gain this experience. Once you're done gaining some experience, head to the far right and actually enter inside of the giant fort. Now, this fort is maze-like, so it's very difficult to navigate your first time coming into it. We're going to start off by running over to the far right and dropping down the first opening. There are a few bird soldiers along the way who will give you big 100-point pieces of meat. So this is another good way you can gain a little bit of extra experience while inside of here. Jump across this gap and use this teleporter here to take us to the next area. Once you come out of the teleporter, you'll now be in another area of the fort altogether. Continue along the hallways, of course, defeating any of the Birdmans that get in your way until you've reached 1500 experience. Once you have that, you can evolve to the next body form. This makes us walk now on 2 legs and allows us to carry the bone as a weapon. The bone can be a little bit difficult to get used to. It works very differently than just straight up attacking with the biting jaw that we're used to from all the previous forms. So just the hit detection of using the bone takes a bit of time to get used to. After going through this hallway and then going to the next teleporter, when you come out, head over to the right side and drop down again. Down here, you will come across a green crystal, so be sure to grab that. And once you have that, head over to the left side and make a jump into the teleporter. Now jump up in the air and immediately go back through the same teleporter we took to get to that previous room, and now you're going to be in the boss chamber. This boss is a huge pain. The Bird King is one of the toughest bosses in the entire game. A lot harder, I find it, if you're using the monkey form like I am. Using the biting form seems to work a little bit better. In fact, keeping the bird-like form from the previous areas, the dinosaur areas, can definitely also help out during the course of this fight. So, like I said before, it can actually be a little bit more difficult to actually go the human route. Of course, though, this is just from my experience. When the fight begins, I'm going to head over to the left side and try to get an angle on him. He shoots out these orbs that then do a few various attacks, like trying to do a bunch of them on screen at once that will then come wherever you're currently at on the screen. You can stop him from summoning these orbs if you're able to jump up and deliver a hit with your bone ability. He'll move sometimes back and forth each time you end up delivering a hit. Other times, he's just going to fire a couple of orbs straight at you. Because there's so much space for him to move around in, it can be difficult sometimes to get those timings with the attacks correctly, so you can hit him without you also taking damage from the boss. Now, always keep in mind, if you do get low on health, you can sometimes also use your evolution points to help you out in this situation by evolving a piece of your body. Now, if you're going in the form I am, this can be even more difficult because we really don't have anywhere to go for what we're trying to do. Either way, I'm able to just barely survive and finish off the boss. After grabbing all the meat and seeing the little bit of dialogue, head to the teleporter on the right side and you'll automatically now be back on land, and you'll see the Birdman fort completely explode in the sky. Now head back to the northern continent and head to the left side here. When you arrive, you'll be in the domain of the Hinodon. Now you'll see some saber-toothed tigers immediately attacking us, which we have been to this area already one time before. Had we tried to go to the far left at that point, there was a locked gate that we could not get through. This cave right here would have been locked until we went to the Birdman fort. Now, before we go any farther, we're going to evolve the body once again, now that we've gotten 2,000, and now you can see we are full-blown caveman. Now it's time for the Yeti boss. When this fight begins, I'm going to jump over to the right just a bit and then come crashing down on his head, being able to deliver a hit, but also avoiding his punch ability. Then, when he comes over far to the right, I'm going to reverse my process of now jumping a little bit to the left and coming back just enough to deliver a hit directly on top of the Yeti, then immediately jumping back out of the way of him to the left side to avoid that fist. The timing on this can take some getting used to, because he'll sometimes jump really quickly once he lands, so you have to be prepared. After delivering enough hits, he'll fall down, but the fight isn't over yet. The next boss we have is the Yeti Mother right away, and we don't even get a chance to really heal between. Now, for the Yeti Mother, this fight can be difficult. She's going to deliver a lot of damage to us, that is for sure. As you can see, 28 damage at a time. However, once you get her to the far left side by jumping just right, You now can hit her multiple times. She will charge forward at points. When she does this, you can actually jump over her and repeat the process of just jumping up into the air before she's able to get her attacks off and deliver hits to her, knocking her immediately back down to the ground. Now, if you notice that she's not going to jump right away, if you time it right, and notice that she's going to do the ice breath, you can try to get away from her. The ice breath is going to be kind of the main thing that's going to hinder us from being able to get her stuck in kind of a permanent loop. However, as long as we've gotten to this form, we do a good amount of damage, so once you deliver enough hits though, she will go down. Since we've earned enough experience, we can also level ourselves one more time up. Before leaving the area though, we do end up running into Yeti Jr., who unfortunately has to pretty much find out that his mom and dad are both dead. It's now time for Chapter 5, Early Man, 26 to 3 million BC. This is the final chapter of the game. The final chapter has a pretty more modern looking overworld. Like, you can even see kind of like the current day continents in the way everything is set up. Now, the very first area that we're traveling into has squirrels. Well, at least they look like squirrels. Very, very unhappy squirrels to see you. As soon as they make even close contact with you, they're immediately trying to jump and charge at you. Now that we've evolved to this point in human form, we're going to be using that axe in order to go into them. Now, as far as needing evolution points, we pretty much already hit our max evolution that we're going to really be able to do. Now, you can increase the body a bit more, which is what we will do. But one thing you'll want evolution points for is mainly the final battle of the game. You can still increase the body or decrease it and all back and forth with the evolution points in order to net yourself full health back during the very final boss of the game, and that actually will come into play. The final boss can be very challenging. The domain of the Centaurs, you can see, are pretty much these large elk-like creatures. We can just run through, grab the meat that they end up dropping as we hack them with our axe. Now, when you make it to the domain of fish of prey, when you jump into the water, since we are a human form, you end up kind of bending your knees back weirdly and somehow are able to swim. It's one of the more goofy looking things. Now, there is a way to get a mermaid form in the game. It's something that we really won't be messing with because it takes a lot of evolution points. But when you're in the final ocean area of the final chapter, and you're already in the human form, you can use the Hand of Fate and select Try to Evolve while you have 10,000 evolution points, and you will turn into a mermaid. So that is something that we won't be doing in the game, because, like I said, it takes a lot of evolution points, but you may want to try yourself. The domain of the alligator really is not much more than what we've been dealing with. We're going to do a quick transform into this, but just run across to the opposite side. I like bouncing on the gators that are all here. They're quite angry. They move very fast in the water, and they're surprised here. And we're just going to bust our way over to the other side. Now we're back on land. We're in the domain of the grizzly, which of course bears are my favorite animal, so it's cool that they're represented in this game. Though they kind of move at you kind of weirdly as they're running on two legs and they swipe at you. But if you're able to defeat a bear, you end up getting 150 evolution points for defeating one. Once I've earned enough evolution points, I will increase my body size once again, which will give me some more health, refill my health, and give me more power. The next little area, we actually find a Stegosaurus actually here, still somehow alive this far into the future of the game, and you can either let them be and not kill them, or you can say do not let them be and you can take them out. Now if you say let them be first, they will give you a little bit of a hint, basically hinting at what you need to do in order to turn into human form, have we not already known that. Now if you go back into this area, you'll once again get the opportunity to just go ahead and hack them up if you really want to. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. But yeah, you can actually just jump right back in after they give you that secret to letting them live. Just be like, well, thanks for the secret. Here's an axe to the head. The Eohips are next, though, that we're going to be traveling to. These horse-like creatures will be not too much of a threat, honestly, in comparison to some of the other stuff that we've been dealing with. Though I do really like the way the whole backgrounds and everything has vastly changed as we've gone through the game. We have a much more, obviously, more modern-looking area, some very nice grassy hills and valleys that we're traveling through along this area. Next up, we're in kind of a bamboo-looking forest. It's kind of weird that this would be here, but it looks kind of, at least to me, like a bamboo-like forest. But we're battling some saber tigers, or saber-toothed tigers. They can do a good amount of damage as they're going to pounce at you, but we're just going to try to avoid as many of them as we can, and run to the opposite side of the screen. From where we are now, continuing south on the current continent that we are located on, and make it to the domain of the condor. When here, we're going to be traveling up the large mountain located here. The condors can charge into you. They will do a good amount of damage, but since we've evolved to this point with the larger human body, they won't be too much of a threat to us, but of course you'll always still have to be a little bit cautious at all times. On the top portion of here, though, you will run into some amphibians who have remained over for the last few chapters of the game. Deal with the amphibians and climb all the way up and grab the blue crystal at the very top of this area to get yourself 5,000 evolution points. This will allow you to now travel over to the right to this mountain on the map. Now here is the Cave of Monkey Human. A little bit to the right, you will find the Monkey Human tribe representative. After dealing with the monkey on the outside, we're going to go inside this pretty large area. There's a couple of maze-like areas near the end of the game, and this happens to be one of those areas. There's a bunch of monkeys that are going to try to attack you. When you make it over to the right, you will come to an elevator. Now, in order to get through here, there's a pretty simple path that you can take once the dialogue is over. Take out this monkey, and now we're going to use the elevator, stand on it and hold the up button in order to, well, raise the elevator itself. Don't stop on the next floor, continue up to the floor above that. Once up here, there will be a monkey waiting to attack you right away, and start heading over to the right side. The monkeys carrying the large rock are the more annoying ones, because if they hit you with that large rock, as you see, they do 15 points of damage. Go to the right to the next elevator and head north up here. Once the elevator has arrived at its resting spot, start once again heading over to the right side. Try to do your best if you see one of the monkeys with the large rocks to try to hit him, or if you see him starting to throw the rock, immediately run to the opposite direction to do your best to avoid it. Of course, once it cracks on the ground, it will disappear. On the very end of this floor, you will go outside and be on kind of like a wooden bridge-like area, where we're gonna run into the Yeti. This Yeti is a descendant of the Yetis we dealt with in chapter number 4. They have evolved quite a bit. They have kind of a punch combo they like to do now, and this Yeti is not playing around. When he charges towards you, you're going to want to either hit him directly with the axe if you can, or try to jump down at him in order to land a hit with the axe. It won't take many hits because you're doing 20 points of damage per time, but you have to be very cautious of that combo punch. That little combo punch and uppercut he does will do a lot of damage to you. Once the Yeti is defeated, of course, pick up all the food that's dropped and head to the right side, which will take you to the southern portion of this continent. We're going to skip the area that we end up landing on next and go to the very bottom, where we'll come across the final ocean of the game. This is the area that if you want to build up enough points, you can turn into the mermaid if you would like to. This undersea area has a few fish enemies to deal with, some of which were ones from earlier on. We're not really going to deal too much with them since we don't really need the evolution points to go up. We have plenty in order to kind of upgrade ourselves and all in order to get some extra health during the course of that final battle of the game. The final ocean itself, though, unlike some of the other ocean areas we traveled to, is quite big. There's a lot of water in this whole area to explore. I always like this particular screen right here because you're like underneath the ice of the Arctic area. We obviously don't have too much clothes on, but we're not really having any problems, not for one, breathing under the water, let alone not freezing while we're also underneath this ice. Now, to the lower left here, when we enter inside this cave, you will end up running into the Rogons. These guys are quite interesting creatures, to say the least. They're basically little mini alien-like sharks riding on top of other sharks. And this is the last underwater-like cave area that we get to explore in the game. It definitely takes a bit of exploration in order to work our way through here, and battling these Rogon guys is a good idea in case you want to get a little bit of extra evolution points. There is a boss fight coming up once we're able to finally navigate our way through this underwater maze. Head to the left here, watching out for one more of those Rogon guys, and now you'll be outside of the cave area, and it's time to get ready for the boss fight. This very large Rogon guy can be a bit difficult to get because he ends up like turning out the lights in the ocean itself, so you can only see around you. He'll then throw out a lightning ball that will actually kind of move around in the water itself, and if it runs into you, it will do some damage. He also has a pretty nasty claw he'll like to swipe at you. But just get up close and keep hitting him with that axe. You won't take too many hits in order to defeat this guy because you're doing so much damage with the axe itself. Once the boss has been defeated and you pick up the items that are here, we could evolve technically, but we're at the end here, and it's best just to save our evolution points. Though I love going inside here, inside the palace, where we have all the dolphins here kind of celebrating the victory, as well as a giant whale who emerges from the left side. After being thanked by the Whale King, we leave the whole water area and get our regular human body back, climb up a few ledges before getting back now to the world map itself. Once we're back on the world map, we can now go up north back to the area. Now we passed this area earlier on, but now that we go here, we can now go through this place and we'll make it to the next continent. There really isn't much to see here. There are a couple of bird-like guys who, unfortunately, their wings never grew, so they're unable to fly and they're just kind of walking around. Other than that, there's a few other things, but at the end, we end up teleporting using the weird structure that's here, and we end up on that other island. First up on the last continent of the game is the domain of the Queen Bee. This bee is nasty. You have to jump up in order to attack her, and you'll do 20 damage, of course, with all of our attacks, so that helps. But she doesn't stay on the ground long, so you cannot hit her multiple times. So then fly up into the air and shoot her stinger downward. As long as you evolve to this point, it won't do a ton of damage, and if you do some nicely timed jumps, you can get in between all the stingers that she is shooting out, so that when she crashes down at you, you'll be able to deliver the hit with the axe each time. It won't take too long in order to defeat her, but just keep an eye on that health at all times. Next up is another domain of the Tyrannosaurus. We've been seeing these guys, they're at the brink of extinction at this point. After the dialogue with this guy, head up north. You can fight the Tyrannosaurus if you need to, because of course he's going to try to get in your way here. You have a very low ceiling to deal with as you can't jump up, so you will have to axe him, but it won't take too many hits in order to defeat him. After taking out several of these guys, make sure that your health is relatively good, because we have a boss fight right after this. Pretty much this game throws boss fight after boss fight at you during the final chapter of the game. Just north of where we were with the domain of the Tyrannosaurus, we make it to the entrance of Eden. In order to get inside, we have to deal with this large caveman blocking the way. Now when this fight begins, you'll get quite mad. Do a jump towards him, deliver attack immediately, getting him back down to the ground. He will jump slowly at you, trying to stomp on you, but run underneath of him and run away from him just a bit, and as soon as he lands, deliver a hit. I find it comical, of course, that every time you end up delivering a hit, his loincloth falls down just a bit. Now if he lands on the ground and you give him a couple of seconds, he will swing the giant club at you. Your goal here, though, is to just keep delivering those hits with the axe in order to knock him back up into the air so he won't even have time to swing the axe. Once he has been defeated, head inside the cave. Now, this is another big maze that you'll have to explore, but this is the end of the game. This is the final domain and area of the game. So once you're able to navigate this maze, you're going to be at the final boss fight. Start off by going to the elevator, similar to the elevators we dealt with in the previous area with the monkeys, and head up. Inside here, you're going to come across the weird dino people. These guys were going to try to run into you, fire projectiles at you that they're carrying. Jump over the first elevator that you end up coming to dealing with these guys and go up the second elevator that you see. Once you get to the top portion here and the elevator is stuck, go to the right a bit and go down the next elevator. Here, when you land on this floor safely, watch out for the blobs of goo they throw out that ends up forming the weird slime creature, and just chase along with the guys as they're running away. This will prevent you from having to deal with less of them, because as long as they're on screen running away from you, they won't be able to summon any more on this same level, and you can just easily avoid them. When you make it to the next elevator, head down. There's going to be a slime guy waiting for you immediately. Just avoid him, jump over him, and go up the next elevator. This is where usually people would try to probably go down here, but you actually want to go up this elevator as you're going to make it to this floor here. Once here, head over to the left and you'll get some more dialogue. Eat the green crystal and then go to the left and go inside the giant teleporter on the far left side, and you have entered the final boss fight of the game. The final boss is a very weird creature. It's made up of many different elements though that you can see circling around the creature itself. You cannot defeat the boss until you've dealt with all of these. Start off by immediately attacking the boss. After you've delivered a few of these jumping hits, it will start to flash and spit out one of these orbs. You don't know which one's going to come out though. Here we end up getting the cockroach bug first. For the cockroach, jump up into the air in order to deliver hits to it while trying to avoid it as it's circling around. Every time you deliver a hit, it kind of does a little teleport, which is kind of weird, but if you can time this correctly, you can get away from it and avoid it as it's going around over and over again in a circle. During the fight though, the other main body of the boss will try to attack you, so you're not just worrying about him. So when that happens, you'll either want to attack the boss that's coming at you, or jump on its head sometimes just to get it away from you and not do any damage. Each one of these you defeat, you will get a bit of experience, so this can help you still level up when you need to when you get low on health in order to keep that health up. Now next up, it ends up giving me this very large dinosaur, which is very easy to deal with. Every time he tries to breathe in to do something, I just keep delivering another hit with the axe. This is very easy. A couple of the forms are extremely easy to deal with, and there's a few forms that are very, very difficult to deal with when it comes to this boss. After each of the forms is defeated, you will have to deliver a few hits to the boss before it spits out that next orb. Next up is a very, very small jellyfish, and that's all it is. It's only going to take you 3 hits in order to get it to its next form. Once the jellyfish evolves to the bigger form, that's where things get a little bit more tricky, of course, in order to deliver the hits. Doing jumps away from it, like jump towards it a bit and then hold the opposite direction so you can try to avoid the big tentacle attack that the monster is going to try to do to you. Unfortunately, next up is this green orb here, and this is a huge pain. This fish creature is the hardest part of this entire boss fight for me. Trying to hit him and then get to the opposite side to try to avoid getting hit is very difficult. This guy deals more damage, it feels like, than maybe any other boss. When you get low on health, remember you can pull up your evolution area and decrease the size of your body for 1,500. Then immediately increase it once again, so now we're back to full body mass, and this will net us all of our health back. I don't like doing this because I kind of find it as a little bit of like a cheat device here pretty much during this final fight, but honestly I pretty much always need it, especially if I stay in human form going into this guy. It's really difficult to dodge. I've always had trouble. Now I feel like if you stay as the bird form, you have a little bit better luck being able to defeat that guy, as you can bite him a little bit quicker with your jaw than just straight up attacking him with the axe, but either way, he's rather difficult. Thankfully, he's the hardest one, so once he's dealt with at any point during the fight, you know that you are going to have a relatively easy boss fight from then on. One of the things the boss does drop is evolution points and health, so that's a freebie, you could pretty much say. Next up is this purplish orb, which ends up summoning the red Birdman, who will charge us, and once you get him close to the ground, just keep mashing the attack button with the axe. He will get an attack in from time to time, but he does so minimal damage that it really won't matter, so just keep delivering the attacks with the axe, and you'll easily defeat him. Next up is a large version of one of the amphibian guys. This is pretty much a rematch against that one boss very early on, except this one likes to spit poison at us besides just jumping around. Basically, I'm going to jump along with him, jumping up into the air, and every time I land, deliver a hit with my axe. This way I have a good opportunity to jump over him when I need to, as well as avoid any of the poison spit that he ends up throwing out. What's funny though for me during this run, like I said, this part of the boss is random each time, but the final one of the orbs or eggs or whatever you want to call these things that it ends up dropping for me ends up being the easiest one in the game besides the one that was just free food. This one is just a very minuscule tiny dinosaur. Once that little dinosaur has been defeated, run over to the boss and deliver a few more final hits, and then you get to sit back and enjoy the ending to EVO the Search for Eden. So there you have EVO the Search for Eden for the Super Nintendo. Like I said, if you've never seen this game before, you're gotta admit this is one of the more unique games available for the SNES. And that's saying something, because at this point in gaming, we were still seeing a lot of really unique creativity when it came to just overall game design. No game that I had played prior really reminded me of this. There was a few games that would come out around the same time that I remember playing in my youth that had kind of similar elements. One, the educational game known as Odell Lake or Odell Down Under, where you played as a small fish, and then that fish you could eventually get to grow into a bigger fish, and then that fish ate other smaller fish, and so on and so forth, as, you know, kind of explaining how, you know, fish work and how one fish may eat other fish. But it was nothing quite like this. EVO, with the evolving parts and a lot of choices to make. I know I only made a very small handful of choices throughout the game as far as jaw, body, tail, and all that goes. There's a lot going on here. Like I said before, the human form, while kind of like, I feel like the really kind of special highlight of the game, the way I went, may not necessarily be the best way or the more fun way to play. And it's one of those games where, honestly, you could play it several times and have a completely different looking creature by the time you end up getting to the end. Unfortunately, the game does have a couple of flaws here and there with some hit detection, and I do find some of the areas, while I think the game's graphics are beautiful, I think some of the areas are designed a little lackluster. A lot of areas were just kind of like going through quickly from left to right, but they're all about kind of introducing these other creatures that are around at the same time that we're currently exploring in the game. I have to say, though, the worst thing, honestly, about the game is its price that it's become. It's become a very rare game in recent years as far as being able to get a hold of a legit copy, which is a real shame because it's a real hidden gem that I think a lot of people could really enjoy experiencing it on an actual SNES system, but the price is going to keep a lot of people from being able to get a hold of this game. It also would have been really cool if we got to see more games made by them later on that could have been sequels to this one. Even though Enix only published a game, I don't know who owns the rights now, but it'd be a really cool thing to see a game like this made in the more modern age of gaming. As the credits do wrap up, though, we see End slowly float up into the center of the screen, and the song playing in the background will finish up. And there you have EVO the Search for Eden for the Super Nintendo. With that, though, also, it's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I know this EVO Search for Eden has been a long time coming for some people, so I hope those who did sit down and actually watch it did enjoy it, as I put a lot of work and effort into trying to come up with the best ways and best strategies, of course, to make it through the game. Now, if you enjoyed this, check out my playthrough for one of the greatest, not only SNES games, the greatest games of all time, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. And of course, also, I want to thank every person that's a member of my Patreon. You guys are allowing me to continue doing what I'm doing. See some new names that are actually listed over here, so thank you all so much for doing so. You can check out my Patreon by clicking the big Patreon button right directly below me. As little as pledging $1 a month can keep this channel coming and all the great play-it-throughs. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being a part of the Cornshaq Nation. Thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.